17 SDG goals and built upon 3 pillars: social, economic, and environmental sustainability. They have a strong focus on improving disadvantaged population so that no one is left behind. With this pledge, the government of Bangladesh has identified 39+1 indicators that are derived from the 17 SDG goals to fast-track the development of this country. The RMG industry made an immense contribution to the socio-economic development of Bangladesh. Some of you are probably well aware of the statistics which is being shown in the screen. In terms of SDGs and NPIs, the impact of the contribution is not measured and mostly unheard of. Though only a handful of factories have started reporting individually, BGMEA took an initiative to encourage voluntary self-reporting of its member factories. With the support of United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, Global Reporting Initiative, GRI, and SR Asia, 47 factories have been brought under the umbrella of SDG self-reporting. It was important for us to sustain our efforts and align ourselves with the SDGs and NPI set by the government. As per the 8th fifth-year plan, the private sector's contribution runs about 75%. On the other hand, according to the SDG financing strategy, the government requires the private sector to contribute $1 trillion for turning the 2030 SDG into reality. But the impacts of the RMG industry of the SDGs have not been reported to date. We therefore acknowledge the importance of such reporting and conducted a consolidated study on measuring and managing the private sector impacts. Our study reports not only identifies the impact and gaps of the RMG industry, but also highlights the action areas for the private sector to contribute achieving the SDGs. It spells out significant policy recommendations as well as acts as a way forward in our continuous stride of making the government's 2030 SDG a reality. The RMG industry contributes to all the SDGs as far as Bangladesh is concerned. However, our study highlights that out of 17 SDGs, the RMG industry significantly contributes to 9 SDGs. They are Sdg One, end poverty in all its forms everywhere. Sdg 3, ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all of all ages. Sdg 4, ensure inclusive and equitable quality education. Sdg 6, ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. Sdg 7, ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. Sdg 8, decent work and economic growth. Sdg 9, industry innovation and infrastructure. Sdg 12, responsible consumption and production. And Sdg 13, climate action. Our very first objective was to measure and manage the RMG industry's impact on SDGs and NPIs and identify its achievements, challenges, and gaps in a consolidated manner. Number two, to spell out policy recommendation for the government to intervene. Number three, to recognize and certify the factories that have successfully measured and managed the impact of NPIs and SDGs. And lastly, to scale up reporting and incentivize not only the RMG sector, but also private sector at large. We developed a study approach that could easily translate into language of SDGs and NPIs the impact of the industries. We did not want to create yet another reporting requirement. We wanted to use existing reporting systems adopted by the industry and create a common language so that together with our stakeholders, we can make decisions based on reliable industry data. To tell you more about the data collection, methodology, and findings, I'm now handing it over to my co-chairman of my Standing Committee for SDG Affairs, Sheikh H.M. Mustafiz. And before I do so, let me express my appreciation and gratitude to UNDP, Prime Minister's Office, and GRI for their support and collaboration for the project and for this event. Last but not the least, a big thank you to the team that I have worked with and had the pleasure of working with the Standing Committee on SDG Affairs in BGMEA. The people I want to mention, the names are Mr. Mustafiz, my co-chairman, Mr. Manohar, Mr. Prakriti, Miss Prakriti, pardon me, the support of Miss Linda Germanis of UNDP, and of course, the encouragement of our President, BGMEA, Dr. Rubana Haq. Thank you. Mr. Mustafiz, if you can start.
Sorry for this boring and very, let's see how fast I can do. Good evening. My name is Sheikh H.M. Mustafiz. I'm the Managing Director of QDress Industry Limited and the co-chair of Standing Committee on SDG Affairs in BGMEA. Now I will explain you how we have collected the data and what methodology we have used to do so. Primarily, we have emphasized our results to correspond with national priority indicators. Then we have set up a questionnaires, document from different stakeholders' requirement like GRI, UNDP's business call to action, and buyers' requirement like Higg Index. Then we identified 12 materials from SDGs for RMG sector, that is 1 to 7, 8 to 9, and 12 to 14. Based on this, we sent out questionnaire to all the interested participant factories, and we could compile 47 factories self-reporting data. Finally, we found that the real-time data highlighted performance against the 9 relevant SDGs, that is Sdg 1, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12, and 13. For your information, in our study, 13% of our participants has less than 1,000 employees. 44% has between 1,001 to 3,000. 13% has between 3,001 to 5,000, and 30% has more than 5,000 employees. We have conducted the survey during the COVID-19 pandemic time, and we took an opportunity to get some data regarding the action taken by the factories during COVID-19 pandemic. We found 100% factories have taken safety measures by providing masks, sanitizers, thermal guns, cars disinfectants, marking of safety distance. 100% factories we have introduced special occupational health and safety packages. Few more pictures, and I'm happy to see that these pictures are from my factory. Um, Now let's talk about the results. First with SDG One, and SDG One is about no poverty. In the financial year 2019 and 2020, the participants' factories employed 17,250 males and 26,814 female employees. 100% factory hired workers and employees from the local community for entry to top level jobs. Interestingly, we found 38% factories run local community development programs. These programs are based on local community needs to boost financial literacy, promote fair price shops, subsidize sanitary napkins, award scholarships for poor students, repair roads, etc. It means RMD sector is intensively influencing goal number 1 in Bangladesh. Now let's see the result on SDG 3, which is about good health and well-being. In our survey, we emphasized on the well-being of maternity and parental leave. Factories are consistently investing to improve the retention of women employees after maternity. Most of the factories provide health insurance and subsidized access to health care products like sanitary napkins. The average retention rate of reintegration at work after maternity leave increased by 3% in financial year 2018 and 2019, by 7% in financial year 2019 and 2020, despite the challenges faced by the industry during the fiscal year. We also found 17% factories have paternity leave policy. Now SDG 4, which is about quality education. All participating factories are investing in technical and vocational training programs to upgrade employee skills and facilitate their career progress. Most of the participating factories have procurement guidelines in place on child labor when selecting suppliers or vendors, but the monitoring mechanism remains challenging to implement. Now SDG 6, which is about clean water and sanitation. Factories are discharging water from ETP after testing the treated water's hydrogen level, the chemical and biochemical oxygen demand, total suspended and dissolved solids, temperature, color, and other parameters as per Zero Discharge of Hazardous Chemicals Guideline, ZDHC. 9% factories mentioned that they discharge their treated water in rivers, but rest of them discharging into the sewage lines. We found 91% factories use borewell water and 32% factories sourcing water from municipality infrastructures. 15% factories use recycled water in their production process and in sanitation facilities. And 23% factories have rainwater harvesting system and use their water for gardening, car washing, and toilet flushing. Now, SDG number 7, which is about affordable and clean energy. We found factories have a very good mindset to reduce the consumption of non-renewable energy. Data shows the electricity consumption in financial year 2017-2018 has reduced about 6%, whereas 2019 and 2020 has reduced about 14%. However, due to COVID-19 pandemic, the reduction of electricity consumption may significantly lower. If we make further study in 2020 and 2021, probably it may come up with a different result. Good news is that we found 37% factories started to utilize solar energy between the financial year 2017, 2018, and 2019-20, and it seems to be growing a lot. Now SDG number 8, which is about decent work and economic growth. It seems that the working condition in R&D industry have improved a lot. As per data, employees turnover reduced almost a quarter in the past 3 fiscal years. 100% factories provide maternity leave and life insurance. 70% factories provide physical disability insurance. 81% factory has health care facility in the factory premises. 19% factory provides pension fund. 6% of them have a profit share scheme. SDG 9, which is about industry, innovation, and infrastructure. 24% of factories made significant infrastructure and community infrastructure investment. The total investments in community infrastructure equaled 944 million taka on average, out of 232.23 billion taka investment on overall infrastructure improvements undertaken by 74% of the participating factories. Now SDG 12, which is about responsible consumption and production. 41% factories collaborated with buyers on cleaner production and supply chain efficiency. The amount of recycled raw material used by the factories are increasing at the constant rate of 2% per year. The majority of recycled material are fabric, plastic, yarn, and hangers used in the factory production. 93% of participating factories reduced solid waste generation in their industrial processes by an average of 255 tons. Now SDG 13, which is about climate action. We found 42% of factories set goals to reduce energy waste and resources consumption by 2% to 15% in the next 3 years, and reduced greenhouse gas emissions and water consumption by 5% to 25% in the next 5 years. We also found 34% factories already have either a reuse or a recycled waste policy and practice. And 98% factories have environmental grievance mechanism system. In my concluded remarks, I would like to let you know some key challenges we have experienced during the survey. First, the COVID-19 pandemic highlighted the lack of sustainability management tools to combat disruption in the supply chain. The understanding of sustainability language, impacts, risks, and opportunities are not yet mainstream across the factories and the management. This creates challenges in strengthening the quantity and quality of sustainability data available. Moving from impact measurement to impact management, capacity building on effective impact management is required to ensure that sustainability data is readily available. Building awareness of relevance of social and economic value generation, payment process, financial instrument design, and capacity to match compliance requirements to financing instruments are still a challenge in the R&D industry in Bangladesh to finance on sustainability. Now let's talk about impact opportunities. We have already been a strong engine for the achievement of sustainability standard by the industry, like with the setup of RSC, there is a room to take stakeholder engagement to a higher level. There is now the opportunity to build consensus and capacity to develop a systematic management approach for management decision, reinforcing and understanding the risk and opportunity behind sustainability across business unit, which is crucial to collect the right data and data that is useful for better business management. By setting and communicating measurable goals, improvement of system communication processes are now possible. By keeping the low liquidity in mind, enabling financial sustainability for optimizing processes and financing instruments are required now. Now, I would like to listen the recommendation from our trade leaders and other stakeholders. I would like to invite Linda Germanis to say a few words as our core partner in this program. So, and I would like to thank you for listening carefully.
Thank you very much, Mustafid. Just a few key words to highlight and a few anecdotes from the process we went through. Number one is in the title of the report and the program, there isn't impact measurement, but management. Meaning, measuring is just part of it, but looking at data to make decisions, take action, that was really the spirit through which we started. We had a workshop with all BGMEA members to decide how to design this process. Most importantly, we signed our partnership in the office of the SDG coordinator, because that was also a key stakeholder involved in the process. So what I'm trying to say is like data is not data to measure ex post, but what we did was listening to stakeholders, understanding what was important to them, and then designing a process that ideally will link data to action and some things that we're gonna do together after. Now, many of you, as we were talking and putting together the data, many of you already do sustainability reporting in your own factory. But what was really interesting and amazing was putting all that data together because we could highlight trends. And these trends are a data point very different from the individual factory to communicate to stakeholders. So in how we choose how to collect that data, we listen to the government, the 39+1 national priorities. We listened to communities. We didn't talk directly to them, but through the inclusive business indicators that we used, we brought in that perspective. We listened to buyers. The Higg index is a requirement for many of you, some of you online, some of you in the room. So we hope that these trends as a collective will be a lot more meaningful to make decisions together with stakeholders as we take actions and we move forward. One final note, it was very interesting, but it wasn't easy. But I guess that's part of, it's something that hasn't been done, right? Usually it's at factory level, it's not put together in this way. So I think the bumps we had throughout the process are more like how to set up an EPR system for the first time. And at the beginning it's complicated, but then it starts flowing. So hopefully we would like to use this data to kickstart conversations with stakeholders and take action to improve the impact and the management.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, sir and ma'am, for such an informative presentation highlighting the significance and the need for continuation of such study in the context of RMG industry. Now, may I take the privilege to introduce you to our chief guest, Ms. Zuena Aziz, Principal Coordinator, SDG Affairs. She has joined us virtually. Hoping to connect with her very soon.
Excuse me, I am already connected. Actually, I have been diagnosed with coronavirus. As such, I apologize not being on videos. Okay?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, if you may please grace us with your speech.
Yeah. Respected Chair, Dr. Rubana Haq, President, BGMEA, special guest, Mr. Sudipto Mukherjee, UNDP's Resident Representative in Bangladesh, Dr. Nahid Rashid, Additional Secretary, Economic Relations Division. Dear guest, good afternoon. At the outset, I would like to offer the greetings of Mujib Year, commemorating the centennial birth anniversary of our father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. Simultaneously, we are celebrating the golden jubilee of our independence as well. The government of Bangladesh, under the dynamic leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, has declared Vision 2041 and, in line with it, has recently approved the 8th five-year plan. Last month, Bangladesh got the final recommendation from the UNDP to be graduated from LDC in 2026. It shows the sustained and inclusive growth in social, economic, and environmental spheres in Bangladesh, particularly in the last decade under the prudent leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister. It will give us an impetus in fulfilling the commitment of SDGs by 2030, graduating to an upper middle income country by 2031, and realizing the dream of 168 million people to be a developed nation by 2041. The government of Bangladesh has consistently been adopting the whole of the society approach and the leaving no one behind principles throughout the process of SDGs implementation. The Agenda 2030 calls for promoting inclusive and sustainable industrialization so that the industry's share of employment and its share of gross development product rise significantly. We need to implement the SDGs with well-through of actions, strong institutional mechanisms, and robust policy coherence so that synergies can be increased and trade-offs can be minimized. It is well recognized that the role of the private sector is very crucial for attaining SDGs by 2030. Only the inclusive participation of the government, private sectors, and civil society will ensure the timely implementation of SDGs. The ongoing COVID-19 has created challenges, but the strategy of the Honorable Prime Minister to focus both on lives and livelihood has provided strength among the private sector. We hope the stimulus package of $14.6 billion would help to build back better in our country. I would like to thank the BGMEA for successfully implementing the voluntary self-reporting of its 47-member factories. I believe this very initiative of BGMEA will encourage other private sectors to come forward and report their social, economic, and environmental impacts. I would like to acknowledge UNDP and CRI South Asia for their support to our very important industrial sector. Let us commit for our country and for our Mother Earth as well. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your kind words. Praying for your speedy recovery. It is our great privilege to have the presence of His Excellency Harry Verwij, Ambassador of the Netherlands to Bangladesh. Sir, if you may please come on stage and grace us with your speech.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you allow me to say protocol observed. There's so many names and functions I need to mention that I would lose track, so I hope you allow me. So good evening, I'm very pleased to be among you. I hadn't planned to, but I'm very pleased that I am. And I'll tell you why. First of all, I was at the celebration, the Golden Jubilee celebration just 2 days ago. And first of all, I would like to congratulate all of you with this remarkable achievement of Bangladesh over 50 years, and the efforts and the work that the RMG sector in Bangladesh has contributed to the rise and to the development of this country. So many congratulations from my side as well. I'm here in my capacity as member of the advisory board that Dr. Rubana Haq has established, I think about 2 years ago. And I feel always very much committed to being part of the progress and of this sector here in Bangladesh. I would also like to pay my respect to all the partners who have contributed to this work and to these studies, in particular UNDP and my good colleague Subdito. He has just run out of the room, but well done. I would just say, let's say, also congratulations to the BGMEA and to all participating factories. And I would consider that this study is like a trailblazing effort in creating data and supporting sector transparency. These type of data are highly relevant for branding Bangladesh. So we all speak SDG and will continue to do so for almost 10 years. So I will say transparency is your business card to the world. And Rubana knows that I've been talking about branding Bangladesh from the very start that I came to this country, and I probably will do so 10 years, after 10 years when I have left this country. Branding Bangladesh is extremely important. So all SDGs are equally important, and for the Netherlands, special consideration for the achievements on the SDG 8 on decent work and economic growth. So I'm aware of the hardships throughout the value chain caused by COVID. So I believe that reducing the turnover rate despite these adversities deserve extra praise. I also would like to announce that the European Union will this week launch a new effort, the Team Europe initiative it's called, and both Denmark and the Netherlands together will be in the driving seat on this SDG here in Bangladesh, not only in the RMG sector, but on a much broader effort. And I think the European Union has recognized the importance of the work that is being done in Bangladesh. And we want to, all the European nations want to more or less, grab all their work together and push it forward as a team. So together with the achievement on SDG 3 on health and well-being and on SDG 4 on education, I think that the industry is really shaping that win-win situation. A happy, healthy, and capable worker is a productive worker, right? So I'm also really glad to see progress on clean water, SDG 6, energy, SDG 7, responsible production, SDG 12, and climate action on SDG 13. But this is typically an area where I'd encourage even more ambition in the future. And here too, I strongly believe in the business case, greener business will increasingly outperform non-green ones. So, with these few words, ladies and gentlemen, I wish you a lot of success in the upcoming months, during which humankind will no doubt shake off the third and hopefully final wave of COVID. I wish the Secretary all the best, and with you, I hope she will recover soon, as I hope that all others who suffer from COVID at this will recover. So stay strong, stay healthy.
Thank you so much, His Excellency, for your very warm words. Next, I would like to request Dr. Nahid Rashid, Additional Secretary, Economic Relations Division, Ministry of Finance, to take the stage and say a few words on this occasion on behalf of our special guest, Ms. Fatima Yasmin, Secretary, Economic Relations Division, Ministry of Finance.
Thank you for giving me the floor. Respected Chief Guest, Ms. Joanna Aziz, Principal Coordinator, SDG Affairs. Respected Chairperson, Dr. Rubana Haq, President, BGMEA. The Ambassador, Netherlands Embassy, Bangladesh. Mr. Sudipto Mukherjee, Resident Representative, UNDP Bangladesh, distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and good evening. First, I convey that our Honorable Secretary could not connect due to her other commitment, and she expressed her deep regret at such. Ladies and gentlemen, I feel immensely honored to have the opportunity to participate in the launch of the RMG Sector Sustainability Report, a pathway to manage private sector impact on Bangladesh national priority indicators and sustainable development goals. Before I begin, I would like to remember once again Bangladesh's golden jubilee as an independent nation that we celebrated on March 26. I also want to remember and pay my deep respect to Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, not just as we continue to celebrate Mujib Borsho and following his 101st birthday, but also for his incredible leadership, courage, and vision that allowed Bangladesh to become an independent nation. Ladies and gentlemen, it's amazing how far we have come as a nation, in particular in the last 12 years, under the thoughtful leadership and guidance of the Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Back in 2008, when the Awami League came to power, Bangladesh's per capita income was just $635. And in a span of just 12 years, that has risen to over 2,000 and will only continue to grow as we become an even stronger economy. In that time, we have grown from our least developed country, one of the poorest countries in the world, to knocking on the doors of graduating to a middle-income country. Bangladesh first, in March 2018, met all three criteria, which are per capita gross national income, human assets index, and economic vulnerability index for graduating from an LDC to a developing country. Then once again, very recently in February 2021, at the second triennial review by the Committee for Development Policy of the United Nations, Bangladesh received the final recommendation to graduate from LDC category. The country has once again made all three criteria to graduate from the LDC group. This is another gift that the Honorable Prime Minister has given the people of Bangladesh in the year of its 50th anniversary as a nation. And I have no doubt that we will continue to move forward as an economy and as a nation under her guidance. The 8th five-year plan, titled Promoting Prosperity and Fostering Inclusiveness, will have the country take up pro-poor growth strategy, and this is going to be extremely important, particularly since we continue to be in the middle of a global pandemic in COVID-19. As we move forward as a nation, we must never forget that Bangabandhu always stressed on an equitable nation, of creating a Sonar Bangla, and which is why it is so extremely important that we continue to prioritize the sustainable development goals and truly leave no one behind. To that effect, the current decade, 2020 to 2030, has been declared as the decade of action to deliver on the global SDG goals by 2030. 6 years have already elapsed since the adoption of SDGs in 2015, but concrete action to meet the goals is not yet advancing the speed or scale required. In 2016, Bangladesh worked out a financing strategy for achieving the SDGs. The strategy estimates an additional requirement of resources in the order of $1 trillion of USD to implement the SDGs by 2030, of which 40% of the contribution is expected to come from the private sector. The 8th five-year plan is even more ambitious, envisioning 75% of the required resources will flow from the private sector. This speaks of how important the role of the private sector in achieving the Agenda 2030. Given its overriding importance in spearheading the task of implementing the agenda, it is critical to measure the impact of the private sector on achieving the SDGs. To support this effort, UN-supported program, Integrated National Financing Framework for accelerating achievement of SDGs in Bangladesh is being implemented, aims at mobilizing both public and private finance and monitoring the impact of their investment on SDGs. I am extremely pleased to see that the ready-made garment sector sustainability report prepared with technical support from UNDP and Global Reporting Initiative is the step in the right direction. This report gives the opportunity to understand the impact that the industry is having on the country's sustainability goals. In this respect, I want to thank the 47 factories that volunteered to take the first step in measuring the industry impact on SDGs. I am confident that the program on Integrated National Financing Framework will be able to leverage the effort of these pioneers to expand the adoption of reliable sustainability reporting standards by the private sector to more factories and other industries, also beyond the RMG sector. Finally, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to this important event and congratulate the factories for their pioneering efforts to create an example for others to emulate. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your kind words. Now, I humbly invite on stage the guest of honor, Mr. Sudipto Mukherjee, Resident Representative, UNDP Bangladesh, to deliver his speech.
Shubho Sundar. A very good evening to you all. Principal SDG Coordinator Joanna Aziz, I wish you a very speedy recovery. Dr. Rubana Haq, always my personal inspiration. Harry Verwey, Excellency, the Netherlands Ambassador, good friend. Dr. Nahid Rashid, UN Wing Chief and Additional Secretary at the Economic Relations Division of the Ministry of Finance. Captains of RMG factories, members of the media, BGMEA officials, and my own UN colleagues. Let me first start by thanking everybody for excellent presentations. I also, at the outset, following the example set by my previous speakers, would wish all of you for two awesome developmental milestones achieved in 2021. The first one highlights not just, I repeat, not just 50 years of independence, but equally 50 undisrupted years of economic progress. And the second one is linked to it, the final nod from the Committee for Development Policy on the LDC graduation. And certainly both call for celebrations, and we must. আমি কিছুটা বাংলায় বলবো। শুরুতেই আমি সবাইকে জানাতে চাই, শুভেচ্ছা জানাতে চাই দেশের উন্নয়নের ইতিহাসে বিশেষ দুটি অর্জনের কারণে। প্রথমটা হলো দেশের স্বাধীনতার 50 বছর পূর্তি। ওই 50 বছরের বাংলাদেশের ধারাবাহিক অর্থনৈতিক অগ্রগতি ও সাফল্য। এর অপরটি হলো জাতিসংঘ থেকে স্বল্পোন্নত দেশ থেকে উন্নয়নশীল দেশের উত্তরণের চূড়ান্ত সুপারিশ প্রাপ্তি। এটা এই বছরই ঘটেছে ফেব্রুয়ারি মাসে। And yet at the same time, yes please, we must celebrate this. And yet at the same time, as I speak, humanity has been brought down to its knees, humbled by a tiny virus. The COVID-19 pandemic is the latest multidimensional humanitarian crisis facing the world. And unless humans release their grip on nature, it won't be the last. According to the Human Development Report 2020 published by UNDP, which has been doing for the past 3 decades, for the first time, we've included a new experimental index on human progress that takes into account countries' carbon dioxide emissions and material footprint. I think it's quite important to mention this. It's actually called Human Development in the Age of the Anthropocene. And until recently, until that report was published, I had never heard of the term Anthropocene. But when it was published, I got to know that this is the age of humans. And what it means is that finally, human beings have become their own existential threat. How we produce and how we consume will eventually determine our destiny. And what you see in COVID-19 is just a manifestation of how human beings or human lifestyles have actually affected planetary health. I therefore knowingly is actually deviating from script to speak on a few things. Our findings lay out a stark choice for humanity. Take bold steps to reduce the immense pressure that is being exerted on the environment and the natural world, or our progress will stall. In fact, now that we have entered the age of the Anthropocene, the human age, our consumption and production patterns are fast becoming our existential threat. At the largest foreign exchange earner for the last 3 decades, the RNG sector is now standing at a very critical juncture on adopting more sustainable business practices in the post-COVID-19 world, which we are all aware is having a far-reaching effect on businesses on every kinds of business actually, in every part of the world. গত 3 দশক ধরে বাংলাদেশের সবচেয়ে বড় বৈদেশিক মুদ্রা অর্জনকারী শিল্প হলো আরএমজি সেক্টর। কোভিড প্যান্ডেমিকের কারণে এই শিল্প একটি সংকটময় সময় পার করছে। তাই এখনই সময় টেকসই ব্যবসা পদ্ধতি গ্রহণ করে ভবিষ্যতের সংকট মোকাবিলার অগ্রসর হওয়া। COVID-19 could actually present the opportunity to reshape governance and operational mechanisms of businesses by respecting both people and the planet, and to create new openings for managing systematic challenges for building better forward better. This report is already a step in that direction. It's actually a first good step in that direction, asking for more feedback and action from government, from trade partners, from buyers, calling for a shift from sustainability measurement to way, actually Linda explained, to sustainability management. However, having just policies, however good they are, is not enough. We need more concerted efforts to operationalize those policies into actions. In fact, I remember a poetry from my childhood that between the cup and the lip comes the slip. So I think the South Asian continent, I come from next door in India, we have an amazing track record of producing excellent policies. But it is in the translation of these policies into action that we are not as good. So we need more concerted efforts to operationalize policies into actions, collecting good business cases and amplifying best practices to others through peer sharing, and that's exactly what has happened or what is happening today. And capacity building is also critical. Most importantly, all actions we take should be shaped by full respect for human rights. And I say this particularly because I think, there are a number of studies, and one that comes to my mind immediately is the one that was done by the Danish Institute of Human Rights, showing they had actually mapped it that 90% of all the SDGs, we have 17 SDGs with 169 targets, that 90% of all SDGs in some ways connect to human rights. In fact, SDGs are the first set of rights in a global agenda, which is not just looking at human beings. It's looking at quality of lives of all living beings, even life underwater and life above land. So promoting SDGs enhances human rights, and promoting and protecting human rights, in turn, helps to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Among many other stakeholders, businesses also recognize their contributions to mitigating abuses and strengthening rights have implications for the SDGs. Businesses understand that if they drive respect for the social, environmental, and human rights responsibilities across the operations and value chains, they can induce positive changes in the lives of millions of people directly linked to all the 17 SDGs. In addition to what the survey has illustrated, businesses can make a much more substantial impact on SDGs by mainstreaming human rights in all business operations. And let me give you a few examples. SDG 16, when businesses develop grievance mechanisms and complaint systems and comply with whistleblower protection, they ensure greater access to justice. SDG 3, the one on health, when businesses conduct robust environmental impact assessments and monitor their operations and supply chains for violations of environmental laws, they substantially reduce the number of deaths and illnesses from hazardous chemicals in air, water and soil pollution and contamination. SDG 8, when businesses invest in more monitoring, auditing and complaint system throughout the supply chains, they can contribute to ending forced labor in all its forms. When businesses provide for living wages, they promote sustained, inclusive and sustainable economic growth for all. And then SDG 5, and I've been saying this again and again. In fact, just this morning I had an opportunity to say this, and I say it with all humility, that when businesses develop and enforce anti-discrimination policies, they further efforts to end its impact on women and girls while ensuring women's full and effective participation in economic life. In fact, across whatever development work UNDP does across the world, there is one truth, one underlying truth, which has come, and we don't even need studies to prove it, that for every dollar, every taka that you invest in women's development, the returns in terms of overall social development, environmental development is several times higher. Earlier this month, UNDP organized the second South Asia Forum on Business and Human Rights, and I had the opportunity to be at the opening, virtually involving business sectors, governments, civil society organizations, National Human Rights Commission, academia, trade unions, the UN partners in South Asia region to discuss how such transformation can be brought both at the country and at the regional level. Bangladesh featured in the country-specific session with other South Asian countries for generating many roadmaps to the implementation of the UN guiding principles on business and human rights for the next decade. The UN guiding principles on business and human rights, and I want you to notice and take note of this, sets out clear standards and guidance to address the adverse business impacts on human rights, where an emphasis on protect, respect, and remedy. 31 principles are framed under 3 pillars. The first, of course, goes to the state duty to protect human rights. The second, and this relates to you, the corporate responsibility to respect human rights. And the third is access to remedy for victims of business-related abuses. UNDP Bangladesh is redoubling its commitment to support Bangladesh's effort to implement the standards contained in the UN guiding principles on business and human rights. And we're working with ILO and others to do this. Finally, the Sustainable Development Goals are more important now than ever before. In fact, I remember when COVID brought about a global distraction last year, and there was a general sort of push for really looking at Agenda 2030 being deferred. The UN Secretary General said that Agenda 2030 is the antidote which will help us recover from COVID-19, but will also ensure that we don't go through this kind of pandemics in the future. Now it is the time to secure the well-being of business, of people, economies, societies, and most importantly of our planet. The SDGs will not be reached unless we succeed in completing this fundamental mind shift in terms of roles and responsibilities of the business sector for the well-being of society. In fact, I think it is one of the Unilever chairman who would actually mention that there is no such thing as corporate social responsibility. You can only have irresponsible corporates. So I think UNDP is ready to work with all of you, and I actually literally mean all of you. BGMEA is the convenient partner and a partner of choice to ensure that we chart a course towards a much brighter future under strong partnership. If we want to reverse those trends that have offset much of the pre-COVID progress made in the implementation of the Agenda 2030, we must commit ourselves to tackle this crisis head-on and to do so together. This time, we must recognize the pandemic as a watershed moment that requires states and businesses to change their modus operandi, to forge a new normal of an economy where growth and respect for human rights go hand in hand. No one better knows this than the RMG sector, that post-LDG graduation export ambitions can only be met by adopting greener, cleaner production systems. The new generations of buyers, I think they call Gen Z, are increasingly conscious of ethical sourcing, and that includes both social and environmental factors in production. As I conclude, I thank the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency for sponsoring this study undertaken jointly by BGMEA, GRI and UNDP. And let me conclude by quoting UNDP's chief, Achim Steiner. It's not about choosing between people and trees, between poverty and progress. It is about choosing to do things differently. সবশেষে আমি ইউএনডিপি চিফ আকিম স্টাইনার একটা উক্তির কথার মাধ্যমে আমার বক্তব্য শেষ করতে চাই। And that is, it's not about choosing between people and trees, between poverty and progress. It's about choosing to do things differently. পরিবেশ বান্ধব উন্নয়নের অর্থ মানুষ ও প্রকৃতির অথবা দারিদ্র্য উন্নয়নের মাঝ থেকে যে কোনো একটাকে বেছে নেওয়া নয়, বরং এটা একটা সমন্বিত কৌশল। And that is what I'm going to call on you to actually continue our efforts. This is the decade of action, the last 10 years, and let us redouble our efforts as we go into the future. সবাই ভালো থাকবেন, সুস্থ থাকবেন। ধন্যবাদ।
Thank you so much, sir, for such an inspiring speech. I now take the privilege to invite the chair of this event, Dr. Rubana Haq, President BGMEA, to grace the stage and say a few words on this occasion.
Assalamu alaikum, Shubho Sundha. Good evening to you all. All protocols observed, but I must wish the Principal Coordinator, SDG Affairs, PMO, Mrs. Zuena Aziz, a very speedy recovery. Thank you for partnering with us and for acknowledging private sector. I certainly thank UNDP, GRI, and of course the Swedish partners, of course, for being here with us and for making sure that the private sector's contribution is acknowledged and at least incentivized. I mention the word incentive because any business needs incentive, not in the way that you often perceive. It's not just monetary incentive, but we need to feel that we are on the right track and that we are doing good. I absolutely agree with Sudipto on what he said. Humans are destroying the earth. And I also agree with him on the bit about responsibility. Responsibility cannot be only thrust upon the private sector. Responsibility is for everyone, including sustainable sourcing practices. So while the sector and the ready-made garment industries are responsible, we might as well very humbly remind the buyers also of their responsibility to source sustainably and with full emphasis on ethics. Without ethical sourcing, this stride towards development is not going to be, it's not going to be sustainable. So I apologize if I'm hurting the sensibility of the sourcing corners, but with due respect, we need to be paid better. So for green practices, we need the green prices. This is something we've never had for years. For the last 4 decades, we've always been subjected to price considerations. We've had to be competitive, and cheap labor is a very cheap terminology. For us, we are competitive, but we don't want to be cheap, and we certainly don't want to pay our workers less. So responsibility is not on our shoulder alone, it's about being in it all together. In fact, I often say it's not about choosing sides. It's about everyone being on one side, whether it's labor or the industry or the buyers, we all need to be in it together. And there are no sides to choose. So UNDP, there are no sides to choose. You have to be in it with us as well. Oh, I certainly hope so. You certainly have displayed that you are, but going forward, we want you to be the ambassador also for Bangladesh, so that the sustainable industry that we have today gets advertised throughout the globe, because our stories are never heard. Our stories are hardly appreciated. So I have the honor of having Harry, our very dear friend, His Excellency, the Dutch ambassador, and he has been a true friend because he has been talking about branding Bangladesh for years. And for the last 2 years, he's been tirelessly working with BGMEA because he is part of our advisory council, and he has said all the right things in the right place. So we urge upon you, Excellency, to also carry forward the word of sustainability to the rest of the world. Thank you. BGMEA being the apex body of the RMG industry, we have signed the UNFCCC. And not only that, we have pledged to reduce the GHG emission by 30% within 2030. The charter has been signed by almost all strategic buyers, and we've also been able to prepare a playbook of climate action to disseminate the best practices to climate action. I would also like to humbly inform you that as the president of BGME, I have been elected to represent the global manufacturers in the UNFCCC Fashion Industry Charter for Climate Action for 2021-22, and I promise you I shall do my level best to promote sustainability in the best possible manner. I congratulate the 47 factories who are in here, and I certainly hope that this is going to be a small step towards a giant stride that awaits the industry. I certainly hope that we continue reporting our sustainability practices with full transparency and with full emphasis on data. We need data to be reported rightly to the rest of the world. We cannot have et cetera practices. We cannot just have high table practices. We have to work our level best so that we know that we are on the right track and that we are saying and conveying the right things to the rest of the world about us. The stories of Bangladesh must be heard. And like I say often, we have introduced a new hashtag, and we say hashtag go human, go green. So let's go human, let's go green. And let me thank everybody from the deepest core of my heart for being a part of it, including our committee chairs, Wasim, and of course, Mustafiz, along with BGMEA and Monwar, of course, who often bails me out from when I'm in dire straits with my scripts. But Monwar, thank you again. And of course, thank you all for being in person here. My sincerest gratitude for your presence, and I hope you continue to do the best of work that you can ever do. Thank you very, very much. And of course, stakeholders, welcome, and I would think that we are probably on the next phase, right, to be giving the certificates?
Yes, sir.
Great, okay. Do you want us on stage? Or
Before that, we are going to launch the virtual
Oh yes,
detailed
indeed,
report, sir.
indeed. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your thoughtful words and for revamping our ambitions. I would now like to request my co-host Fahmida to take over and carry on with the program.
Thank you, Prokiti. Ladies and gentlemen, Now we will move on to the main attraction of our today's event, the moment we have all been eagerly waiting for, the virtual launching of the SDG report. May I invite Dr. Rubana Haq, President BGMEA, and Mr. Sudipto Mukherjee, Resident Representative UNDP Bangladesh, on a stage to launch the report, please. Yes, sir. No, sir. Thank you, sir. Once the report is uploaded online, the link will be sent to all of you. We will now move forward to our certificate giving ceremony. In recognition and to congratulate the 47 factories who have contributed to this report, all the factories will be awarded with Certificate of Appreciation. I will now announce the name alphabetically and requesting the respective representatives to come on the stage for receiving the certificates. Abanti Knitwear Limited. Ananta Group. Air Jeans Producer Limited. Asian Group. Best Shirts Limited. Blue Planet Fashion Wear Limited. Capital Fashions Limited. Colors and Stitches Limited. Q Dress Industry Limited. Colors and Stitches Limited. Denim Expert Limited. Dipto Apparels Limited. Ecotex Limited. Fabrica Neat Composite Limited. Fakhruddin Textile Mills Limited. Fakir Knitwears Limited. Fashion.com Limited. Flamingo Fashions Limited. Garments Export Village Limited. HKTG Garments Limited. Impress Nutex Composite Textiles Limited. Interstoff Apparels Limited. Keylock New Age Bangladesh Limited. Neat Concern Limited. Mark Fashion Wear Limited. Mauna Fashions Limited. Meher Garments Limited. MG Niche Stitch Limited. Mohara Asian Apparels Limited. Needle Drop Limited. New Age Apparels Limited. Also New Age Garments Limited. Nippon Garments Industries Limited. Posh Garments Limited. Poshmi Sweaters Limited. Ram Apparel Limited. Sea Blue Textile Limited. Snowtex Outwear Limited. Softex Sweater Industries Limited. SQ Birikina Limited. Along with that, SQ Celsius Limited. Subarno Garments Limited. Shurma Garments Limited. Tarasima Apparels Limited. TRZ Garments Industry Limited. Urmi Garments Limited. Utah Knitting and Dyeing Limited. Via Latex Limited. Thanks to all of you, requesting all the distinguished representatives from these 47 factories to come on the stage for group picture, please. Let's give a round of applause to these 47 factories who contributed to this SDG self-reporting and make this initiative successful. Thanks to all of you. Now let us move on to our crest presenting ceremony. May I request our Honorable Chair, Dr. Rubana Haq, to come on the stage for presenting the crest to keynote presenters, Mr. Wasim Zakaria and Mr. Sheikh H.M. Mustafiz, please. Now, I would like to request Dr. Rubana Haq to hand over the crest to our guest of honor, Mr. Sudipto Mukherjee. May I now request our honorable guest of honor, Mr. Sudipto Mukherjee, to present the crest to our chair, Dr. Rubana Haq, please.
Special thanks to Linda, of course. Linda, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have come almost to the end of our event. At this moment, I would like to invite Mr. Asif Ibrahim, Director, BGMEA, for delivering closing remarks and vote of thanks.
you very much. First of all, thanks to SIDA for assisting BGMEA and the technical support provided by UNDP and GRI. BGMEA is extremely proud to be leading this study and this report. It goes to show the commitment of BGMEA as the leading trade body of Bangladesh towards the SDGs. I think that says a lot about what we wish to achieve. Our president mentioned about Go Human and Go Green, and this is just one of the initiatives that BGMEA has taken. So I would like to thank the distinguished keynote presenters, Wasim Zakaria and Mustafiz, for a job well done. For the welcome address, Mr. Faisal Samad, the Senior Vice President, for Shudipto, for being the guest of honor, and also Dr. Nahid Rashid for speaking on behalf of the ERD. We also wish to thank the Principal Coordinator, SDG Affairs, Ms. Zuena Aziz, and of course, we wish her speedy recovery along with the rest who are suffering. And of course, Harry, Excellency Harry, who also spoke here, he's the distinguished member of our Advisory Council of BGMEA. And of course, a big round of applause and a big thank you to the 47 member factories. I think you are the shining stars for setting the example. And I wish everybody a wonderful rest of the evening, and I guess we invite you to dinner. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for such good words coming from you. Thank you all for making time in your busy schedules to join us here today. It has been our greatest pleasure to host this event, and I wish all of you a very good night. There is arrangement for dinner outside. We request all of you to join us there. Thank you. Stay safe, stay blessed.
ভালো ভালো